Hi, I'm Sheila Averbuch. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I did with Pencaitland Primary School in developing this book, which is called Pirate Families. We developed this in Pencaitland as a whole school story earlier this year in 2014, where I worked with a group of students ranging from primary up to from morning nursery up to primary 7, developing a story about something to do with pirates, actually. That was our only given, is that I was going to brainstorm with the kids what characters could have a pirate adventure and what would that adventure look like. So just to give you an idea of how it worked, I went in first thing in the morning and worked with the primary 7s on who the main character would be. Then I worked with the primary 5s on who the antagonist, the baddie, would be in the story and what would make them a baddie. And we were very clear that we needed to start with the characters because that's that's the reason people read stories, is lifelike characters that they feel bad for or identify with or whatever. Then once we knew who the good guy and the bad guy were, I started to work with the younger classes to talk about, if you were having a pirate adventure, what sights and sounds would there be? So even the very youngest kids were able to contribute because they could talk about going to the beach, and they could talk about if you were on a ship, what sounds would you hear if they'd ever been on a ferry and heard seagulls or splashing waves. And what was quite helpful was that earlier in the day when I was working with the 7s and the 5s, they started to draw character pictures and also pictures of the boat that this girl was going to have her pirate adventure on, and I could then show those to the younger kids. So during the course of the day, we had our characters, we had our setting, and then we started to say, okay, what's the adventure going to be? To cut a long story short, by the end of the day, we had the story of Hazel, who is a girl who loves the TV show called Pirate Families, and the TV show comes to film at her seaside village where she lives, and she manages to sneak onto the ship to get herself in the show because she's dying to be on the show. But of course it all goes horribly wrong when the ship gets hijacked by a real pirate. And anyway, by the end of the day, you can see whether Hazel had a happy ending or a sad ending if you read the Pirate Stories book. But what was so interesting was that after the day of working with the kids, and it was just one day, we didn't have a book. We had this, which was a manuscript I wrote. I kind of referred to myself as the quilt maker, taking all the scraps that the kids had developed and writing it up into a story that I basically just sat down for hours and wrote. As about, maybe at that stage was probably about a 6,000 word story, which is like a short book. And then I gave the manuscript to the kids and said, what do you think? And we also were very grateful for Chani McBain, who is the marketing director at Floris Books in Edinburgh, who came in and spoke to us and said, okay, you have a manuscript, but in the real world, if you wanted to turn something like this into something like this, here's what would happen. And she talked to us about everything from the design phase to the editing phase, and she said, you all are going to be the editors of this book. So we want you to read the story that Sheila wrote based on your ideas for things like things that don't sound right or things that sound strange, or, you know, are the chapter endings too boring? Could it be more of a page turner? And do you have suggestions? So a whole bunch of kids actually came back to me with their comments, and here's what one of them did. You can see that at the end of chapter 2, I think it was, cliffhanger. He liked this ending because he thought it left him hanging. And that's how it went. I incorporated the kids' ideas into the revised manuscript, which was this, which we read the first chapter of at an assembly one day, and then about 2 months later I had incorporated everybody's changes and we developed the final book, which was sold as a fundraiser for the PTA here in Pencaitland. But what's really amazing is that since that time, kids have come up to me, of course, the kids who were involved, 36 in all, just writing the text, and another 20 doing illustrations, and the illustrations are really fabulous. How is that? I mean, that's really an amazing wraparound illustration, but there's also in-story illustrations of a little teddy bear. I love that one. All the kids who were involved felt such ownership of this book. And we had a book launch event where all the kids who were involved in helping write or illustrate it signed the book because they were one of the contributors. And since then, I keep running into kids who said, oh, I read that book, it's a good story. Or you'd hear kids saying, yeah, I worked on that book, that's you know, I'm one of the contributors. I just met a 7-year-old boy yesterday who read the whole thing himself. Someone didn't read it to him. And he said, you know, that's a really good book that you wrote. And what I'm thinking, what I say to everybody is we all wrote this book together using the kids' incredible, unfettered imagination, and I was basically the person who stitched it all together for them. If you are interested in doing this kind of thing in your school, do give me a call. My blog is spacekidsbooks.com. My name is Sheila Averbuch, and I'd be pleased to talk to you. Good luck with your reading initiatives in your school.